Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone had a wonderful holidays and Happy New Year. This is the very first setup in my 2025 bullet journal and I'm so excited to get started. This setup, I'm going to be using these Tombow dual tip brush pens. They are water-based, which is really important for the technique I'm going to be trying today. And I'm going to be using the brush tip end. The other end is just a finer tip. And I'm going to be using water to try to give a more watercolor paint effect, but still be using my markers. So I'm adding this really pretty lilac purple color on the left side over here, and then I'm going to add the other color, this kind of pastel light blue on the right side, and then I'm grabbing my paintbrush here and I just dipped it in some water in this bucket and I'm using the water to blend the two colors together in the middle. The water is also helpful to blend out the plain color because it helps kind of smooth the color and you don't get those brush marks, and it makes it look like more of a watercolor kind of painting effect. And I will show you a close-up of this afterwards. So after I blended the middle, I went ahead and filled in the rest of the cloud that I'm drawing here. The trick about this technique with blending with the water and the paintbrush is you have to be a bit quick. So if you colored in the entire thing first, the marker probably dried already and it won't be as effective. So that's why I'm kind of coloring it in little batches and then immediately grabbing my paintbrush to apply the water and smooth and blend out the color. I'm doing this really fun kind of whimsical cloud theme, so I added a little bit of pink as well into the clouds. I think it adds a really nice cute touch to this theme. It's sort of like giving me cotton candy unicorn vibes a little bit to this pink, blue, and purple, but I think it's really soft and kind of whimsical and fun. And the blending trick is working quite well. You can see that I'm able to blend the pink on the left and even carry the rest of the color on the brush over a little bit to the So that's that cloud on the left, and now I'm going to repeat this technique for the cover page on the right. What I found worked best was coloring half the cloud in one color and the other half in another, and then again you have to be quick, but I used the water to blend the middle right away, and then I kind of worked my way outwards, blended the rest of the cloud, and added touches of bolder color here and there to add a little bit of definition and a little bit more color. So yeah, that's the technique that I repeated on the rest of the clouds here on the cover page. Although I'm showing you the cover page first here, I actually did this last, so I actually already finished the rest of the setup at the point that I'm filming this, and I always do that because that gives me a chance to practice the doodles and techniques that I'm doing throughout the theme on other pages first before I have to commit to the cover page, and I'm glad I did that in this case because this watercolor technique was brand new to me, so I kind of realized that what I liked best was to color the cloud half-half like I did here, blend in the middle, and then work outwards. I found that that technique worked best for me for this theme and the kind of vibe and atmosphere that I was going for. Let me know in the comments what you guys think of this technique, and also let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in seeing a tutorial of this watercolor technique with water-based markers. I know it's a little unconventional and a little different than what I usually do on this channel, but yeah, let me know if that's something you guys would be interested in. Here's a closer view of me blending the colors. As you can see, it does take a bit of effort, but it really does work pretty well. The colors do blend quite nicely in the middle. I'm going to quickly just show you guys a close-up view of the effect that this technique has on your journal paper. So the journal I'm using has really thick 150 GSM paper. You can see that the paper has roughened up a little bit, so there is like minor damage to the paper. I don't know if you can tell, but there's some kind of rough spots on the paper, and the paper also does warp a little bit like that. So yeah, it's not perfect, but it stood up pretty well, and I had water on the other side as well, and the paper was doing okay. Now to finish off my cover page design, I'm going in with my Ohuhu fine liner in the 0.1 thickness, and I'm going to add a few little doodles here. First, I'm tracing all of the clouds. I purposely did the watercolor first so that it wouldn't smudge the ink, and then I'm adding the secondary element to this theme, which is so much fun, and it's these really cute kind of paper airplane doodles flying and zipping around the clouds. I think this is just so cute, and it works with the kind of whimsical, funky cloud theme really, really well. So yeah, I'm so happy with how this is looking. For the word January, I wanted to have it on top of this sort of like moon type thing. I don't know if I'm really going for a moon here, but I wanted this kind of circle in the middle. I saw this in some inspiration pictures I had saved on Pinterest, and I really liked that kind of round shape in the middle. So I added the pink, and I kind of just added a bit of pink around the edges of the clouds, as you can see, and used my water on the paintbrush to kind of drag the pink towards the center of that circle. That was definitely the right technique for the effect I was going for, and you'll see in a spread later a mistake I made that I learned from for this cover page. But for the moment, I'm super happy with how this page has turned out. I'm just using a kind of simple drawn out cursive font here. I think it goes well with the theme, and yeah, I'm super happy with how this cover page has turned out so far. On to the next spread now, which is going to be the calendar layout. In the past few months, have gotten really into these 2-page calendar layouts. I didn't used to do them. I kind of didn't understand why you would do a calendar and days of the weeks, like in the weekly spreads, but in the past few months, I've been finding this calendar super helpful to see everything at a glance, and it's been one of my most used spreads, so I decided I definitely wanted to have that in this month's setup. In lieu of that, I decided to actually forego the trackers. If you've watched my videos for a while, and if you watched my 2024 flip through and 2025 setup, you'll know that I just don't use the trackers a ton, and there's been so much bullet journaling and art and videos in my life the past month that I kind of just didn't want to spend more time than I needed to on this month's setup. So I just stuck with the calendar layout because I actually use this a lot, and I skipped the trackers for this month. So like I said earlier, the cover page was the last thing I did, so this page was actually the first thing, and so this big block of color was the first main test I had for myself of this kind of watercolor marker blending technique. And you can see the location where I added the color here turned out to not work very well. This kind of blob of pink in the center just didn't blend well, and putting it on the side like I am right here, that worked much better. And so I found that dropping the color in the center doesn't really work. I also realized from that test that I need to be a bit faster. Like I said, the markers dry pretty quickly, so you don't have a huge time window between putting down the ink and when you need to grab that watercolor. So by doing a smaller area of purple like I did there, I have time to grab my paintbrush and drag out the purple. This worked much better, and I was much happier with this top bar than the one on the bottom that I just did, so I stuck with this technique for the rest of the setup. This color scheme is not my usual go-to, but I'm so happy with it. I think it's so fun and different, this kind of cutesy, whimsical vibes. Yeah, not my usual go-to, but I'm really happy with it. I did want to focus more heavily on the blues and purples than the pinks because I have a really cute and fun idea in mind for February that involves pink very heavily. So stay tuned for that setup in February. I'm excited for that one, but I wanted to save the pink for February. This is the calendar spread for January. I love the bars on the left. I think that will be really useful for me as well. On to the next page now. This is going to be my goals page and the first weekly spread for January. The first week of January only has 4 days, so one page is perfect. And now you're going to see the other mistake I made that I referenced earlier. If you recall, on the cover page, I did that kind of pink circle in the middle where I wrote January, and I was really happy with that look. That was the kind of aesthetic I had in my mind. But as I mentioned, I did this page first, so I colored the entire circle right away with my marker. And as you can see here, it's a lot of pink, and it looks okay, but it's just not the aesthetic I had in my mind. I wanted something more washed out and watercolory like I had on the cover page. So at this point, it was a bit too late to save this one. The darker pink helped a little bit, I guess, but it just wasn't the vision I had in my mind. So I'm really glad that I did these other spreads first as a trial, so that when it came time to do the cover page, I kind of knew which elements worked the best and what I wanted to incorporate on the cover. Anyways, I could have covered this up, I considered it, but I was a bit lazy to do that, so I'm glad I just left it. I think it's not that bad. I think the clouds kind of saved this spread, and by this point I had figured out the half-half in the clouds trick, and I think the clouds look okay, so I'm okay to just leave the pink circle. Another really funky element I'm liking here is these lines hanging down to the cloud. I think it makes it look like the clouds are kind of suspended or like really cartoony or two-dimensional. It's just a cute idea I saw in some inspiration pictures I saved on Pinterest. I save all of my pictures in my public Pinterest profile, so if you guys are curious to know what I'm thinking of or have in mind for the upcoming month's setup, you can follow me on Pinterest and see what I'm saving ahead of time for the next month's setup. This is the first weekly spread wrapped up. I don't love the pink circle, but I kind of made my peace with it and I decided to leave it as is. Normally, I just set up the first week, but I was feeling a bit inspired from other things I had seen on Pinterest as well, and I decided to do one more full weekly spread for the month of January. And this one is kind of clouds on both sides and then a kind of vertical layout in the middle. By this point, I think I'd kind of gotten the cloud blending technique down, so I decided to do clouds in a few different color combinations. I also realized that involving blue and pink was difficult. It was easy to do blue and purple, it was also easy to do purple and pink, but blue and pink was tricky, so I kind of stuck with purple in both sets just to keep it a bit more cohesive and easier to blend. Once I've got the clouds done, I'm just laying out the days of the week. As I said, this will be a vertical layout, so I've got two kind of columns, one on each page, and then I'm just using a pink bar, and I'm using the darker pink and dragging it across with the water to make it a bit of an ombre effect. But otherwise pretty simple, just tracing the clouds and doing the same kind of doodles that I've done on all the other spreads to set up this weekly spread. I was really pleasantly surprised at how quickly I was able to do this setup. I think the whole setup took me around an hour, and I think it's a lot easier than it looks. It looks really sophisticated, but this water blending trick works pretty well, especially once you get the hang of it. I think it's a really great way to make elevated and really beautiful artwork pretty quickly and easily. So yeah, let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in a separate tutorial for this water-based marker blending technique. And here is the final flip through. You guys, I am so thrilled with how this turned out. I've never done this watercolor blending technique before, and it worked better than I could have hoped. I think the clouds are just so cute and beautiful, and I'm so excited to start my year of journaling with this setup. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, friends!